The Cavs have been such a good team so early this year that I think we forget that this is also one of the youngest teams in the NBA. What Darius Garland is under 25. Evan Mobley is 21 years old. Jared Allen, he's not super old. Like there's not a lot like other than Kevin Love, who is old. He 2011 draft, he's old. And maybe you could say Jetty. There's not a lot of older guys there. And even Donovan Mitchell, he's a young veteran. He's been in the league 5 years, but he's still a young guy and relatively inexperienced. When you look at like Kevin Love, he's been to what? How many finals did LeBron go to? Like three? Three NBA finals? Three in a row? With 15. Well, no, he wasn't at the 15 one. He wasn't at the first one because he got injured. Kelly Olynyk in that first series. So he was in the 16 finals, the 17 finals, and the 18 finals. So he's been to 3 NBA finals, been to 3 NBA finals runs, knows what that's about. When you look at Donovan Mitchell, he's been to like a couple of playoff series, which, it's not nothing, but like relatively you have to look at the experience here. And this is one of those days where on the second night of a back-to-back, I felt like they crumbled a little bit because of that lack of experience, right? Evan Mobley, if you look at the stat sheets, it looked like he had an incredible game. 26 points, 8 rebounds. But if you look at his plus minus, it's -20, and that's because he got into so much foul trouble late. And that's what really allowed the Clippers to get back in it, right? And the Cavs did this, I think, 2 or 3 times in this game where they got up by 13 points and then they just started fouling and turning the ball over. They did it once early in the game, they did it once in the second half, and then they did it, of course, in the fourth quarter at the end of the game. And that was their Achilles heel. There was just something that didn't seem sharp about this team today, right? They just didn't seem, I don't want to say they seemed unfocused, but they look like a team on the second day of a back-to-back. I'll just say that. And that takes its toll. That definitely takes its toll. The travel takes its toll, even though they didn't travel that much. Just the time zone and everything else. It just seemed like a team that was a little bit out of whack, not being their usual self. And I think that really popped up late in this game. And again, like Evan Mobley, the foul trouble he got into was not helpful. Darius Garland, who was pretty good for most of the game, something happened in that late fourth quarter where he was terrible down the stretch. And even Donovan Mitchell struggled to get things going, had a couple of turnovers late in this game. And I think that was the big thing, right? If I look at turnovers, they had 17 today. 17 turnovers to the Clippers 9. Boom. That tells you everything you need to know about the game, right? Evan had 3 turnovers. He also had how many? He fouled out today. So 3 turnovers plus fouling out. It's nice that you got 26 points. It would have been even nicer if you would have got 16 points and didn't turn the ball over and didn't foul out. So, again, that's where the stat sheet can kind of lie to you if you don't look at the whole picture. I don't think Evan feels like he had a good day, at least from an overall perspective. I think he had a nice day from the field, though. 12 of 18, he did have a nice night from the field. He absolutely did. But that's part of it, right? Darius Garland, 5 turnovers down the stretch. And, people can say, hey, we should have gave the ball to Donovan Mitchell more. Donovan Mitchell had 3 turnovers down the stretch too. You know what I mean? So your best 3 players down the stretch combined for 8, 9, 10, 11 turnovers. 11 turnovers. You cannot have that and think you're going to win games. Those 3 cannot do that again. Karis LeVert even threw in what? No, Karis only had 1 turnover. And then Kevin Love, one of the other best players on this team, 3 turnovers. Your best players can't be turning the ball over consistently. That's a result of sloppy execution on the offense. Quite frankly, we know what this Cavs offense looks like when they operate at a high level. We know what it's supposed to look like. Today, it didn't seem as crisp. It didn't seem like they were hitting the notes on the right key like they're supposed to. It seemed a little off, and when that happens, you end up with 17 turnovers. Some of these were missed passes. A lot of these were missed passes. Some of these were straight up air balls. There was a lot of air balls in the fourth quarter. And some of these are just bad play, bad dribbling, sloppy ball handling, all that stuff. And again, this is not usual. There is no need to panic about an 8-2 basketball team in November. They're very good, but this was one of those nights where, hey, the NBA's weird. You play these back-to-backs, and sometimes you have these games where you just have all of the turnovers in the world. Credit to the Cavs. They honestly should have won a game in which they had 17 turnovers, 8 more than the other team? They really should have won this game. So that's credit to how good this team can be when it comes to overcoming some of their deficiencies. But I think there are some problems that are popping up that we need to start having serious conversations about, because in the course of a regular season where a team is not going to plan on trying to beat you 4 times in a row, I don't think these things are going to matter much, right? But I do think in the course of a playoff series, this is going to be something that matters for them. And that's their inability to guard bigger wings, right? That's a big problem for this team. They don't have the size in that front court, front court to really, back court, my bad. They have tons of size in the front court, in the back court to do it. And that's mainly because they're at the position at the 3. They're in a bind right now. You can play Dean Wade, and Dean is good for, I think, about 75% to 80% of threes in this league. I think he's good to defend about 80 to 75% of those guys. The problem is in the playoffs, you're not really playing the teams that are living in that margin. You're playing Jason Tatum. You're playing Jaylen Brown. And look, the Cavs have beaten the Celtics 2 times. 2 very close games that went to overtime because the Cavs have issues stopping Jason Tatum down the stretch. Same thing happened with Paul George and Norman Powell today. And if Norman Powell going off, and look, no disrespect to Norman Powell, he's a really good player. Well, he's a good player. He's not a really good player. He's an all right player. You know what I mean? But 17 points off the bench in 28 minutes, 5 of 6 from the field. Him getting 7 free throw shots, like that tells you have a problem when it comes to defending on the wing. And their issue is that, yes, Dean Wade is what you want out there offensively for spacing. Defensively, he's not going to be able to do anything against those upper echelon guys. The problem is that you cannot live with Isaac Okoro out there for a bunch of minutes, man. He played 18 minutes today, and look, he might have did stuff defensively that was pretty good. Offensively, he has nothing to offer this team offensively, and teams are now aware of that, right? Like last year, I don't think teams were as aware, so they were still giving him some basic respect, and it didn't completely throw off spacing. There's nothing you can do with Isaac Okoro out there because sometimes he gets the ball and he's so wide open, he has to shoot it, but he's such a bad shooter that no matter what he shoots and how open he is, it's a bad shot. And I know there were days where a defensive-oriented guard or a defensive-oriented 3, a wing player, could just live in the NBA. There used to be that day, right? But that day ain't today. And I think, look, if you're not going to make a big move for a 3, a wing player, you need to do what you need to do to get Isaac's confidence up offensively so he could be somewhat of a factor, because what he is offensively is unhelpful. Defensively, and it leaks into his defense because he keeps getting all of these bad fouls. It did not happen last year. Last year, he was a really good defender. This year, he has the potential to be a really good defender, but he has not been a great defender, in my opinion. And I think that's been a problem for him. So they got to figure that out because it ain't going to be Jetty. We know it ain't going to be Jetty. Look, Caris, he goes and he hustles defensively. He ain't going to be that dude. They need a 3-and-D guy, right? Because Evan can't be out there on the wing all the time. Jarrett's not going to be out there on the wing. Darius is too small. And then Donovan's got to score on the other end. And the same thing with Caris, right? So you need somebody who can dedicate themselves to defending those bigger wing players that could be perimeter threats and then also somebody who's just not going to completely throw off space. And I know everybody's been throwing out what Jameson, Jay Crowder. That's been a big one, but something needs to be done there. I don't think that's a move that's going to be super expensive, but it is something that like I would feel much more comfortable about, because right now we just don't have a great solution for that. And again, in the regular season, you're going to be able to win 50, 60 games with that flaw. My concern about that is if this team does reach their potential and we're playing basketball in the late spring portion of the year, in a 7-game series, teams are going to exploit that, right? Boston will exploit that with Jason Tatum, Giannis, in Milwaukee, even though it's a little bit different of a situation because Giannis is not a great shooter, but he's Giannis. And if you have a problem with Jason Tatum, I promise you, you will have a bigger problem with Giannis, right? Like, and Chris Middleton, right? Like, these are the things that give the Cavs problem. And in order for the Cavs to get to where they need to get and where they want to get, they need to solve it. That's something for the future, though. Overall, I think this loss is more about, you coming on a back-to-back and you just had a really weird game. Guys weren't crisp. They turned the ball over a lot. They fouled a lot, and that ended up deciding the game. Now, down the stretch, this is a very long road trip for the Cavs. They still have to play Sacramento. They go to Golden State. So you would expect the Cavs to be able to win that game against Sacramento. That Golden State game is going to be interesting because, yes, the Golden State's not been playing well. I understand that they're at the bottom of the conference right now. They're still Golden State. That's still Steph Curry. They still have Klay Thompson. Klay Thompson's not Klay Thompson anymore, but they still have some scoring on the perimeter that you want to see if you can do something about. Same thing with Jordan Poole. So those are going to be some interesting games to watch as far as the Cavs going forward. It's going to be interesting to see how they follow up this week of West Coast games. They're 8-2. They just had an 8-game win streak. It would have been great to see this continue on and see them match the Milwaukee Bucks for that 1 seed. But again, it's November, so it's not really that big of a deal. But that's my thoughts on the game. Let me know your thoughts down in the comment section below. Y'all have a great day. Have a good night.